Yo, welcome to what will be a Trooper/Merc healing guide, and I'm going to try and go as detailed as I can. And what we're going to talk about today is gear, proficiencies, abilities, and before the fight. And we're not actually going to show any fights today, because I'm going to do separate videos on how to handle yourself, how to heal the specific bosses. Alright, let's get started. First things first, gear. The Trooper and Merc are known for their burst heals, so in accordance to that, you want to be going high crit. And there's a forum post that I kind of sort of based off, I go off of, and you want to go just over. I mean, I haven't geared this, so don't go by the numbers you see here, but you want to go critical rate and you want to go 1500, maybe above. And alacrity you want to go 1200, like pretty much dead on. Because you definitely want to have high crit with this guy, but you also need alacrity. Otherwise you're just going to run out of energy and going to take too long to cast. And obviously the rest just go on power and yeah, just power, because mastery just comes with it. For relics, mastery and power. I've been debating whether to try a crit relic, but I haven't gotten to that yet. But one of the best things as a healer is to mess around with the stats, because before 3.0, everyone was saying you need to have your alacrity at this, you need to have your crit at this, you need to have your surge at this. But the heals weren't enough for me, so I messed around, and got way better heals just from trying out different stats. So you should definitely, just maybe put on like 1700 critical rating and see how that works, or maybe more alacrity, or maybe more power, or whatever. Just give it a go. You might get better heals. Okay, so proficiencies. Now I'm gonna go through all of these and tell you why you want them or why you don't want them. And for the Merc, I don't know if they're called the same, but the descriptions are pretty much the same, so you'll be able to follow that way if you are a Merc. Right, so Tenacious Defense reduces the cooldown of Concussion charge by 5 seconds and Tenacity by 30 seconds. Anything to do with dealing damage or defense comes secondary to an ability that gives you more healing. So this would be secondary, so you don't need this. This has nothing to do with healing, so you don't need it. This you might need. This is a maybe, but it will depend on the other passive abilities that you get if you take this or not. This can be useful, but it really depends. I think it's more useful for PvP more so. So you don't need this because this is damage. You don't need this. This is also damage. You don't need this. See, this you do need because I believe it builds defense when you use medical probe. So it does go with your healing, so you do need this. And this you need because when you do need to use recharge cells, it will give you even more cells. So that's very important. Now you can decide for yourself. So that leaves these two. So you can decide for yourself if you want Heavy Trooper or this combat stims. I would say Heavy Trooper is better because recharge 10 cells when you're immobilized or knocked down is situational, but this Heavy Trooper can be used at any time. Hold the line, increase hold the line for 4 seconds. This can be useful. This you don't need. This won't affect anything in ops. This you don't need. This can be useful, but you would need to use the cure, or you would need to use your cleanse on yourself the whole time, which would be annoying. So I wouldn't say this. Again, this also could be useful, but you're not gonna always have reactive shield on. Same for here. This you will need because you will use your cleanse a lot, and it's especially for the Trooper. It's gonna be very useful if your cleanse doesn't have a energy cost, so you can use it as many times as you want. Right, so I would say out of Masterful, you definitely want efficient conversions. And then you can choose between Advanced Align and Supercharged Defense. I would actually say Advanced Align is a better choice because you can use Hold the Line whenever you want, whereas this only goes with Supercharged Cell. So I've actually made a mistake here. Anyway, so yeah, I would definitely go for efficient conversions and advanced align. Alright, for heroic, this is where we get a bit tricky. This is where personal preference comes into it, I would say. Alright, this is defense, so this is secondary. This comes into healing a lot for the trooper, because the ability that is Tech Override makes one of your abilities activate instantly, and this reduces its cooldown and concussive round, of course, but who cares about that? But also grants a second charge, so you'll be able to use 2 abilities without an activation time. So I definitely use this. This again is situational, so I think like Underluck or something like that. I'm not sure if he's AoE damage. This you don't need. This you don't. This is a maybe, because it's an extra heal. But Force March is you'll be able to use successive treatment while moving, and you do know see what makes the trooper brilliant is that the high heals, the burst heals, in combination with being able to run around, is brilliant, because you'll be able to run away from the enemy, or run to cover or whatever, and fully heal anyone while you're running, and be able to dodge attacks and stuff like that. So you definitely want that. You definitely want to be mobile. And again, smokescreen I think would be more useful in PvP. Yeah, so this would be a choice between. You definitely want Force March in ops, because these new ops are designed for you to be mobile, and the trooper definitely shines in being mobile. And yeah, your choice would be between Overclock and Kolto Wave. I would definitely 100% go for Overclock. And I'm going to demonstrate in a minute why. But if you just want an extra heal, you can just go with Kolto Wave, but I'll definitely go with Overclock. Alright, so now that we've gone through the proficiencies, we're going to go through the abilities. Now, as you can see, my UI is a bit of a mess down here. But any ability, well, I mean most, I would say 80%. 80% of the abilities that I need for healing at any time are keybound. Now what that means is that I've used the key, like as you can see here, QERF, or Control Q, whatever, is anything to do with healing. And you can ignore, anything after this, because I don't really use these up here. But like 2, 3, 4, 5 I use. So yeah, any ability, as you can see with healing, is keybound. Now, the first ability you're going to want as a trooper or as a Merc is your combat support cell, or cylinder on the Merc, I believe it's called. Now what this does is it gives you the stacks that you will need for Supercharged Cell. You also get the stacks through healing, for using Medical Probe. So you want combat support cell, whatever. So then you can actually, and increases your healing too. Now you want to know what all of your healing moves are. I'm about to tell you. You have your so-called, which I call the big heal, which is Advanced Medical Probe. Then you have your small heal, which is just Medical Probe. Then you have your instant heal, which is Bacta infusion. Then you have the channel, the AoE heal, which is Successive treatment. Then you have the smaller AoE heal, which is Kolto bomb. And then you have your basic heal, and the basic heal refers to the healing move that has that costs no energy, which is Medshot. And Medshot builds your stacks as well. Now you would normally, before a fight, which I'm going to get to in a minute, before a fight, will build your stacks, as you can see here. Now the other moves that go with your healing are Tech Override, Recharge Cells, which recharges your cells. Well, Tech Override activates an ability instantly and gives you an immunity to pushback and interrupts for 6 seconds. Recharge Cells recharges your cells, and Reserve Powercell makes your next ability that you activate after that cost no energy or heat. And you also want to know your emergency medical probe, which is very important in ops because this is your combat res. So this is what it looks like, and you want to know because it's very important if someone dies, like the tank, and you need to get them up. What else? We got trauma probe, which you can precast, which we'll get into later. This is like a shield that heals your friendly targets, heals your group members if they take damage. You got your cleanse, which cleanses, and then you got your supercharged cell, which you can read on the side there. But pretty much, once you get 10 stacks of this charge right here, you can activate supercharged cell, and it increases your healing done by 5%. And while it's so active, your advanced medical probe has no cooldown and costs less energy. Now your advanced medical probe is your big heal. This having no cooldown is very good because the crits you can get with the trooper goes like, anywhere between 25k and 30k. So now think about that. If you can, for 8 seconds, the activation is nearly 2 seconds, you can probably activate that move just 4 times on its own. That means you can heal up fully 2 people nearly. Another thing you should know about is your revive ability. It's not essential, but I found it useful because sometimes after a boss, when someone dies, they may be stuck under something. So if you press P and find your revive ability, it's on the general. Just put it anywhere. You don't need to keybind it or anything. Just have it. Because when you try to revive someone, you can't right click them because they're underneath or stuck in something. You can just revive them by using the ability. It's just a little thing. Okay, so that's gone through all the abilities. I'm not gonna go through the DPS abilities. I don't really use Propulsion round. Don't really find the use for it. You don't really use. If you do have time to DPS, you just want to throw a Electronet in and full auto and maybe a sticky grenade, something like that. Mortar volley. I don't play DPS, so I don't. Right. So now I'm going to show you how to use the abilities that we just discussed, the healing ability. Oh, I forgot. Adrenaline rush, your defensives. Adrenaline rush and reactive shield. Adrenaline rush will. Now, people sometimes get confused about this move, but when your health goes under 40%, which I have done a guide on how to set your UI and stuff like that, which I will link. But if your health goes under 40%, you can activate this ability beforehand as well, before you go under 40%. But as soon as your health goes under 40%, it will start healing you up to 40%. But it will stop at 40, but it will keep healing you. So if you keep taking damage, it will just keep healing you up to 40%. And it will do this for 8 seconds. So it's a really good thing for staying alive, but it only lasts 8 seconds. And you also have a reactive shield, which just makes you take less damage. You also have hold the line, which you also need. You need to have ready, you need to have keybound. For whenever you're stunned, you need to move. And then of course you got concussion charge, which if you spect into the proficiency that heals, you'll need to know where that is. I hope I said Kolto bomb. Yeah, Kolto bomb is the easy move too. Alright, so first things first, this is how you use the abilities, right? So your Bacta infusion goes with the big heal, aka the advanced medical probe. So if you use that, it will proc the advanced medical probe, which means that it will activate instantly. Boom. Okay? Your medical probe just works on its own, but it will also build your stacks for supercharged cell. So normally the way the trooper works is that you use the Bacta, you use the advanced medical probe, you probably use a successive scan, and you've probably used the small AoE, the Kolto bomb, which means that everything's on cooldown, as you can see, and while everything's on cooldown, that's when you use medical probe. So it's normally a move that you only use while everything else is on cooldown. While you're not using any of these 4, which is medical probe, advanced medical probe, Bacta infusion, and successive treatment, you will constantly use med shot in combination with Kolto bomb. So these are the 2 moves that you use when you're not using any of your bigger heals. So that way you don't waste all of your energy when you need it. Now, Tech Override. As I was saying earlier, the proficiency, you will need this proficiency that gives you 2 charges, and I will tell you why right now. So, healers, as you know, DPS have this thing called a burn phase. Well, I mean, everyone has the burn phase, but the healer burn phase is a little bit different. The DPS burn phase is when the boss is about to die, and you crank out every single bit of damage that you can crank out. So you use all your cooldowns, and you just, you mess it up, right? Now, I consider the burn phase of healers when everybody in your group has taken damage, everybody's nearly dead, and you need to just crank out as many heals as you can. So, for this, so because it's situational, the burn phase for the healers can happen at any time. It's not just at the end of the boss fight. It can happen at any time because something can go wrong, and then the whole group takes damage, and then the healers need to fix it. So, for this reason, you need to always make sure in the middle of the fight that you have 10 stacks. Now, for this reason, Supercharged Cell. You always need to have Supercharged Cell ready, as it increases your healing and also puts no cooldown on Advanced Medical Probe and makes it cost less. Now, this is where Tech Override comes into, and also Reserve Powercell. I would also use Reserve Powercell with Advanced Medical Probe. Now, what you want to do is you use Supercharged Cell, and this will happen really quickly. So you use Supercharged Cell, use Reserve Powercell, Tech Override, and then use Advanced Medical Probe, and then you can use it again because you have a second charge, and then you can use Bacta Infusion, which will then proc Advanced Medical Probe, and then you've used it 3 times. You see that? This is why you have 2 charges. Now, if all of those is critted, Advanced Medical Probe, I mean, you've had it twice, which would be 40k at least, and then you would use Bacta Infusion, which is could be another 10-12k, and then you use it again, which could be another 20k or over, which is then 60k. So that alone can heal up 1 or 2 people in a matter of a few seconds. And because you've used Reserve Powercell, you will have used little to no energy at all. So this is why you have the Tech Override, is that you can fully heal someone or 2 people, but use little to no energy. And that is why I use Tech Override, is because of the 2 charges, and I always use them with Advanced Medical Probe. Unless it's on cooldown, and you don't have Supercharged Cell, then you would obviously use it on Medical Probe. So to recap, in the fight, if there's no big healing that needs to be done, you want to use Med Shot with combination of Kolto Bomb. If things start to get a bit hairy, you will use your successive treatment, and then your other abilities. But just remember which ability works with which. If you know which ability works with which, then you'll be fine. Know where your defenses are, and that kind of stuff. Now, before the fight, there is this thing called precast. This is where Trauma Probe comes into it. You can use Trauma Probe during the fight, but a lot of people complain when you don't use Trauma Probe before the fight. And most times, it depends. If you know your tank, you know how your tank works, then you can do whatever you want. But most tanks like to, quote-unquote, good tanks, don't use their taunt at all. Now what this means is you can screw them over by precasting. Now what a precast is you use an ability before a fight. And I don't mean channel, I mean use the ability. You've successed it. So you, as a trooper, you would use Trauma Probe on every person in the group, and then you would start the fight, right? That's how you normally start. Okay. Now what this means is that you've built threat, and that if you only have one tank, for example, or both tanks don't want to use their taunt, which they most times don't do, the boss will go straight for you because you've built the threat. They will not go for the tank. Now what this means is that the tank will have to taunt, and then they've wasted their taunt because you didn't you precasted. Or in fights like Corrupt to Zero, where there's loads of ads, if you precast and you don't do anything about it before the fight, then the ads will just go straight for you and you will die. Now there's two things you can do for the precast. You can put the trauma probe on everyone before the fight, but then you threat drop, which is diversion. You use your threat drop after you've used them all, and then you should be okay. Should be, but it only reduces the threat. It doesn't get rid of it completely, so you still might have screwed the tank. So option number 2 is what I like to do, but this is only like I'll get into that. I'll get over myself here. What I like to do, because I when I know my tank is good, or I'm confident in my healing, I will do the trauma probes once the tank has gained this threat, because I know that no one's going to die at the beginning of the fight. Again, because I'm confident in my healing. So you would let the fight start, just like maybe a second after the fight starts. That's when you put the trauma probes on the tanks, so then they're sorted. You always need to keep it updated on the tanks, because they always take the damage no matter what. The DPS can avoid damage most times. So tanks always first, then you do the DPS if you have time, because you may be too busy healing, but it will definitely help with your healing. So precast, option number 1 is you precast everyone, and then you start you precast everyone, drop your threat, then you start the fight. Option number 2 is you start the fight, then you cast the tanks with trauma probe, of course, and then the DPS, and then yourself, if you have the time. It depends with some fights whether you precast or not, but most fights you don't have to. Also, one thing before the fight is you always got to build your 10 stacks every time before the fight. Now, I don't know whether this also counts as a precast, so I've just gotten into the habit of just dropping the threat whenever I do anything before the fight, because if you gain any kind of threat before the fight and the tank doesn't know what to do, and the boss is on you and he doesn't know what to do with it, then you're dead, and then you've already wasted the combat resilient healer, and then if someone dies during the fight, then you're just screwed. So many things can happen before the fight that will, decide the outcome of the fight. I think I've been over pretty much everything. Like I say, I'm going to do separate videos on how to handle yourself in specific boss fights with all 3 healers. I'm going to do guides on all 3 healers. If you have any more questions, feel free to ask. Goodbye.